Hi everybody, how are we all doing? I hope we're having a good week so far. So today is Thursday the 27th of March 2014. We're back with Arrow episode 17 titled Birds of Prey, and wow, I really enjoyed this episode. Really enjoyed this episode. Black Canary, Huntress, Laurel Lance, Arrow. It was just fantastic. It was really brilliant. So as I have done with many of the episodes so far, I am going to be spoiling this one as well. I know I didn't spoil last week's episode, Suicide Squad, purely because of Harley Quinn's cameo appearance, was why I didn't want to spoil that episode, hence why I did a separate video talking about Harley as well. So if you haven't watched that, or those two videos, by all means, check them out, okay? Birds of Prey, this episode sees the return of Huntress, played by Jessica DeGale, and she's back in town because her father has got himself in trouble again. We hear a name of Hugo Mannheim being mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Now, I know of Bruno Mannheim, and I'm under the impression that maybe Hugo might be his brother, although I've never really heard of Hugo Mannheim myself. Personally, I may have done, but completely slipped my mind. But I know of Bruno Mannheim, obviously. So, as I say, I think Hugo might be his brother anyway. So Frank Bertinelli gets himself in trouble. He's arrested, and this is where Laurel comes back into the fold. And by the way, Katie Cassidy was back on top form in last night's episode. It was brilliant to see her, see her back. It was, you know, pretty much centralised. You know, the focus was partially on her as well, which was pretty good. So she did get quite a lot of exposure in this episode. She gets her old job back at the law firm, at the Starling City Courthouse, by her, her boss, Adam Donner. He wants her to be part of the prosecution as such, for Frank Bertinelli. Obviously, Oliver, Felicity, Diggle, they all now know that because Bertinelli is back on the scene, how long is it going to take before Helena comes back? And Felicity basically says, describes Helena as Oliver's psycho ex-girlfriend, hell-bent on getting her father's revenge back on what he did to her fiance. What does Sarah say to Oliver, ex-girlfriend, and what does he reply? Is that what you got from that sentence? It's like, oh, poor old Oliver. He gets it from all the ladies. Can you blame him for getting such stick? I mean, he kind of is his fault. I mean, you know, first Laurel, then Sarah, and then obviously, you know, dancing around with Felicity. And let's not forget Isabel Rasheva as well, who I think is back in next week's episode. So we will see Summer Glau back next week on Deathstroke, and I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. Who else was I going on about, ladies? Yeah, dancing around with Felicity, Isabel, and of course Helena as well. So he's obviously had a fair bit. Oh, let's not forget Shadow back on the island as well. So Oliver has been around. So I suppose Sarah Lance's little zing towards him was appropriate in some sense. So yeah, so Helena's back on the scene. She's gonna basically want to finish her father off, but we find out that the entire case at the courthouse was actually a trap set for Helena. When Laurel found out, she wasn't happy about it. When Quentin Lance found out, he also was not happy about it as well. But it was all masterminded by Adam. You know, he made a deal with Frank, and he basically said, look, you know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this person to be your defense attorney as such, and we're going to have, you know, you being brought into the courtroom, and that's where we're going to capture your daughter. Of course, it didn't go to plan, because Helena, as she says to her father, what is it you always taught me? Always be prepared for anything. She had men inside the courthouse as well. So they took hostages, including Laurel, and that's when everything starts to get interesting. On the other side, we've got Roy. Now, Roy gets back into action, and Oliver calls him Speedy, and we're all thinking, has he already given him a nickname? Why is he now using Speedy on Roy? because obviously he used that on Thea. We later find out that he only used it on Roy because it was the only way to get Roy's attention, because Roy was on his roid rage moment again. So that was the only way he could get Roy to focus, to snap out of his rage. And Roy basically says, please don't ever give me a nickname, ever, especially Speedy. Don't ever call him Speedy. So he doesn't like Speedy. That right arm of his is really giving him trouble. And I think that's going to head towards, possibly, because we know in the comics, at least before the relaunch of the New 52, that Roy actually loses his right arm altogether, and he has a prosthetic sort of, you know, bionic arm given to him, and in some ways you're looking at that sort of version from the TV show where this right arm of his is giving him serious trouble. You know, he had someone shot a gun through his hand, so he had a bullet hole through it already, and it's really causing him a serious amount of stress. He had to break up with Thea, much to Thea's disappointment, but it was Oliver who suggested that he and Thea broke up, and the only way he was going to get Thea to be pushed away was catching him kissing another girl at work. It worked. So yeah, Thea's not happy about that. But with going back to Helena, obviously, and her father, she obviously is still hell bent on revenge for what he did to her fiance. You know, she wants his father ended as such. She does get her wish, although she's not the one that kills him, which is a shame. So she doesn't feel proud that she didn't kill him, someone else did instead of her, so she was not happy about that. It's kind of like the Joker is the only one that's allowed to kill Batman. Nobody else is allowed to. If Batman ever was killed by someone else other than the Joker would actually flip his lid, and would kill whoever actually killed the Batman himself. So that's how it sort of looks like for me anyway. We had one major DC Comics reference, and I was so pleased. And with a title of an episode called Birds of Prey, when you've got Black Canary, Huntress, and someone who behaves like the Oracle, aka Felicity Smoke, you know, a computer geek with glasses, you've got to reference, you know, the creator of the Birds of Prey comic book series, and none other than Gail Simone herself was referenced. If you heard it clearly, you will hear how that the Huntress was on Gale Street Simone, on the corner of Gale Street and Simone. It was just brilliant. I sort of sat there when I first heard it, I was like, yes, they've referenced Gail Simone. So never mind the fact that it was, you know, all of her characters in one show. She herself, Gail Simone, was referenced. So Gail, I hope you love that. That was pretty awesome. So well done to everybody that got that in there. It was pretty awesome. Pretty cool. So yeah, and then obviously the fight scenes between Huntress and Black Canary was pretty awesome. They had 2 rounds, the pair of them, and let's just say in the second round, if it wasn't for Laurel, Sarah may have actually killed Huntress there and then. But the interesting thing was, there was a moment between both Sarah and Laurel when Sarah was Black Canary and she was trying to rescue Laurel, and she had to use the voice distorter thing on herself so that Laurel doesn't know that it's actually Sarah. And speaking of identities, couple of things. One, I had no idea that Quentin already knew that Sarah was the Black Canary. Now I think it might have been, I was told it may have been in episode 5 of the season that Quentin knew about his daughter being Black Canary. So I'll need to rewatch that at some point, because I completely had no idea that he knew already that his daughter was, you know, under, you know, fighting crime and such. But now that I think about it, it's starting to come back to me now that I remember that he did find out about it. The other thing, Oliver nearly had a close shave with Quentin Lance. Quentin's ringing the arrow, Oliver's phone is ringing at the same time. He's standing right next to him. Oliver pulls out his phone and he says, "Oh, it's my mother." Walks off and starts talking to Quentin as the arrow. And I was like, Oh my god, are you serious? And even when he then rings Felicity, he then says, "I'm with Lance's Oliver, who just rang the Arrow." Felicity's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, that's a bit of an issue. We really need to keep track of who's who in terms of secret identities, is what she says to Diggle. So it was a close one, a real close one. So Oliver managed to get himself out of that. But again, how does Quentin not know? It's just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, he knows his daughter is Black Canary, but not knowing that Oliver is, he will find out eventually. But when he does, I think that'll be the end of him. He will somehow die or something in that respect. So as I say, no, an overall really, really good episode. And I love the part where when Oliver is telling Sarah not to get involved, to take down Helena Bertinelli, she turns around to both Diggle and Felicity saying, "Well, what do you guys think?" And Felicity just like, "Oh, well, I think if the Huntress does show up, you should totally kick her ass." And Diggle just like, "Yep, you should." So Diggle's in agreement. Felicity wants Black Canary to kick the Huntress's ass. It was just, it was brilliant. It was a sublime episode. I really, really enjoyed it. Next week's episode, however, is going to be seriously action-packed, I think. Because at the end of this episode, Thea's going home, but she gets picked up by Slade. She thinks she's getting a lift home, but she's not. And this is Slade's chance. This is his chance to show Oliver what he's going to do in terms of, now that I've captured your daughter, your sister rather, come and get me. It's going to be awesome. And the tagline that they've used was, "Get Slade or get Slayed." It's just brilliant. So Slade as in Slade Wilson, and get Slade as in, SLAYED, Slade. I thought that was pretty cool. So really looking forward to next week's Deathstroke episode. It's going to be a mind-blowing experience. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. So obviously don't forget, this weekend, a new Arrow character spotlight video. I've already decided who I'm going to talk about, and I'm actually quite surprised that I haven't even spoken about this character. But saying that, because they haven't featured in this season so far until sort of recently, it makes sense for me to talk about this character. So yeah, find out who that person is on this weekend, and yeah, back next week for Deathstroke. Oh, dearie me. And then I think it's going to take a week break after next week. Again, and then we're back with episode 19, which is I think the Man Under the Hood. Yes, that's the one. So looking forward to that, and that's also when we see two characters from the Flash pilot appearing, aka Killer Frost and Vibe as well. So looking forward to that one. So that'll be in about another 2 or 3 weeks or so. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all very soon. Bye.